Hi guys, so in today's video I'm going to be covering paginating a InDesign file so that you can print a saddle stitch booklet or a magazine style or staple bound book, and I'll be using the same file I was using in a previous video. So this is the isometric design that I did, and I made it into an 8-page booklet. And what you do is you go to print booklet instead of print. This is going to give you the option to export your book into a PostScript file. So this is important. So first you want to go, you can check the preview. In this case I have it set up correctly, so you won't be seeing any issues right now, but what you do is you go to print settings, and for printer, instead of picking any of the physical printers, you want to check PostScript file. And then under PPD, you preferably want to check whichever printer you're going to actually be printing. If you check device independent, what's going to happen is on other menus, nothing's going to activate. So you want to have this selected for the printer you're going to print. For this project, because it's black and white, and because I have a lot of delicate lines, I'll be using my Canon laser printer, and also because the laser printer prints front and back, so it's a duplex printer. So once you have that selected, you if you have any blank pages that are part of the design, it's always good to it's important to check print blank pages. If you don't do this, what's going to happen is the process or the software is automatically going to skip the blank pages, and the order is going to be all messed up. So if you have any blank pages that are part of your design, always remember to check this. We go to setup, and I will be printing on letter size paper, and the orientation is going to be selected portrait, an upright portrait style by default. And what that does is, as you can see in the preview, it's going to mess up the orientation, so the image isn't going to fit correctly. So you want to get that right. So in this case, I want a landscape print because I'm going to score and fold the sheet in the middle, and I'm going to staple bind it. And then I'm going to maintain the original scale, and the page position, usually it's going to be set up at upper left by default, and what that does is it aligns the image to the upper left corner of the page, so we don't want that either. Make sure to select centered. That looks good. And for the marks, typically none of the marks are going to be checked, but you want the crop marks. You want the crop marks because in the design we had a bleed, so you want to make sure you have the crop marks. You can add bleed marks if you want, but it's unnecessary. So, and you always want to use document bleed settings, and this is gonna give your design or your book the bleeds that you set in the document. And for the marks, I'm going to use a thin weight line, 0.25, looks pretty good, and you want a little bit of an offset. So if you don't have an offset, what it's going to do is, I'll show you real quick. So what it's going to do is I'm just showing you an example, but this is what the crop mark is going to look like if you give it an offset. So this is the offset. So no matter how precise the machine wants to print, nothing's going to print out perfectly. So if you don't give it any offset, what the marks are going to do is they're going to be attached. And this at the corner, once you crop it, so it's actually going to be right here, right? So once you trim the page, this corner is going to show at the corner of the actual page if you don't give it an offset. So what an offset does is it'll give you this blank space between the two marks, and when you trim it, nothing's going to show in the corner. May not be a big deal, but it's always a good idea to give it a little bit of an offset. And the program by default will give you the offset. It's going to have a little bit of offset as default, so just make sure that's activated. And that's it for the print savings. You can click OK, and then make sure everything is set correctly. 2-up saddle stitch is what we want. And 2-up means that on one side of the paper, you're printing 2 pages. That's why it's called 2-up. You can look up N-up online, and it'll explain what it means. So you can see there's a 2-up perfect bound, consecutive, like there's 3-up, 4-up consecutives for brochures. 2-up perfect bound is you're printing 2 pages on a single side, but you're actually folding each sheet and you're stacking them and binding them perfect bind. And I'll cover this in a future video. So, but we got that wrong. So we're going to go back to setup. We're going to center that again. And make sure everything looks right in preview. So 1-8 looks good. The next page, 2 and 7. 3 should be on the right, so that's correct, 3 and 6. And we have 4 and 5. That looks good. So we can go to print. And this is going to ask where to locate the PostScript file, and I'll just send it to the desktop, give it a name, and save it. So you aren't actually physically printing yet, you're saving it as a PostScript file. Okay, so once you've saved the PostScript file, you want to open it in Adobe Acrobat, and it's going to ask if you want to convert it. Once you convert it, now we have the correct PDF file ready to print. And you can check the pages, and they all look correct. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to actually print. So we have the correct printer selected. We want actual size. And we want to select under finishing, and my printer's software, it has the option to select double-sided printing. And then what you want to make sure you're doing is you want to select short edge printing, because we're printing landscape mode, so we want to make sure we're flipping the page. We're going to be flipping the page in the middle along the short edge of the letter size paper. So make sure you have the binding location selected to short edge, and just give it another look, and that looks good to me, and we are ready to print. And as you can see, as it's printing, the laser printer, if it comes with a duplex printing function, it's going to do the double-sided printing for you. So if you were to try to print this with a cheaper inkjet printer, you would manually have to refeed it. But most laser printers, they offer duplex printing, and if you as long as you don't screw up the settings, it's going to print pretty accurately front and back, so the crop marks are going to match pretty well. And as you can see, you want to get the orientation right. I printed a long edge binding front and back print by mistake, and this shows you that the orientation is all wrong now. So you can see it's flipped. If I wanted to flip the book, flip through the book, the images are going to be upside down on one side. So make sure you get the binding location correct. You can think of the binding location as a location of where you're flipping the book. So make sure you get the long edge and the short edge correct. So that's it for the printing and the print setting for a zine or a saddle stitch book. I'll cover how to bind the book in the next video, and we'll be able to see the final result of the book. So I hope that helped. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.